Welcome, everybody, to another wonderful installment of informative Casey discussions with some of our favorite presenters on the subjects. Today, we are enjoying a presentation about discovering your soul's purpose with Mr. Ed Foote. And Ed has been a avid, lifelong Casey enthusiast for many years. He's also delved deeply into the A Course in Miracles material, and he has a variety of topics that he has shared about and presented on. In addition to his passion with spiritual development, Mr. Casey and A Course in Miracles, he's also an avid line dance caller and travels all over the world calling line dances. So,
Square dance.
square dancing, my square dancing. Uh, so, after this, since we're all in squares, we might be able to dance together with Ed calling the name. Um, so, without much further delay, Mr. Ed, welcome to the group and welcome to everybody. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be with everyone today. I want to thank Tyler for arranging for me to be here. It's interesting. I've never met Tyler. I guess he was at Congress when I talked there last year, but this is the first time I've ever seen him, I guess, face to face. So he just responded to an email that I sent him saying if he was interested in a talk, why, and he booked me. So I'm appreciative of that, and it's a pleasure to be here. Tyler said he is in charge of the food service uh, portion of a Salvation Army camp, and he told me he had served a lot of watermelon to the campers this summer, and I wondered if you all knew why there is water in watermelon. And the reason is because the farmer plants it in the spring. Okay, well, it's not going to get any better, but um, so um, in looking at our topic today, by the way, Tyler, did you mention to them about the fact of note taking and questions?
Yes. If you guys do have a question, please pop it into the meeting chat. And in the chat, I'm about to send you guys the handouts for this presentation. They're in this Google Drive. And you put it here. All right. So if you click that link, it will bring you up to the documents that Ed would like for us to have on hand and take notes on. Thank you.
How many of you have printed those documents out already? Okay, because those are going to be very helpful to you as we go along. Um, there is let's see, looks like we have a couple more people coming in here. So first of all, let me say um, it's I highly encourage you to take notes for this talk. There'll be a tremendous amount of life-changing material presented. And I can guarantee if you don't take notes, tomorrow you'll say, gee, there was a lot of interesting stuff there and I don't remember what it all was. So I strongly encourage you to consider taking notes. And along that line, I always wait for the note takers. If I see people taking notes, I will wait for you because you can't be taking notes and listening to me at the same time. So that's why I like it, if you're comfortable with it, to have the camera on you rather than just have your screen be blank, because then I can see who is taking notes. And if I see people's heads down and writing, then I will pause and wait for you because it's vital that you get this information down. Also, Tyler mentioned about asking questions, and in the chat room, that's fine. Tyler's going to monitor that, but I encourage questions at any time as we go along. So if you have a question or a comment or something that I say, and your screen is on, you can just wave your hand, and I'll see your hand waving, and then I'll just stop right there and ask for your question. Now, if we have enough people that we have more than one screen, then I might not see every people's hands, and so but in that case, you could just unmute yourself and say have a question, and that's fine too. So we're informal here, and but I encourage you to ask questions or make comments as we go along. I don't want you sitting there for an hour or so dying to ask a question and feel you can't interrupt me. You're not doing that. So our talk for today is discovering your soul's purpose. This was one of the key themes of Edgar Cayce, and a couple quotes that I like to start off with. Uh, Edgar Cayce said, "Even though you gain the whole world, how little you must think of yourself if you lose the purpose for why your soul entered this particular stay." So I thought that was appropriate. And then also George Eliot, the British author, said, "It's never too late to be what you might have been." It's never too late to be what you might have been. Uh, and of course, also, as long as we are here in Earth School, we have a soul's purpose. So we can't say, well, I spent most of my, I'm in the latter stages of my life, so I don't have to think about this. No, as long as you're here in Earth School, you have a purpose, and the key is to know what that purpose is. Your purpose can change occasionally throughout your life, but it's important to know what that is, and we'll get into that a little later on. So Edgar Cayce said our soul is made up of three components: spirit, mind, and will. Those are the three components of our soul. And he also said that we are to be co-creators with God, to align our will with the divine will. That should always be in the back of our minds, to allow our will, to align our will with the divine will. When I'm speaking to people that are new to Cayce, I give a brief history of Cayce's story of the creation of souls. Since Tyler's told me that you're all pretty experienced with Cayce, I'm not going to do that. The soul's creation story, I'm going to assume most of you know that, and that we're here and we're looking to get back to how we were. Our talk today is going to be in 4 parts. And again, I'll encourage you to take notes. All of my talks are highly organized and are designed for taking notes. There'll be 4 parts to my talk today. The first one will be universal soul's purposes, things that everybody comes into Earth to do, no matter whether they live in the US or Africa or wherever. Universal soul's purposes. Second, individual soul's purposes, what you specifically are here to do and how to determine what that is. Number 3, I'll ask you a series of questions or make comments, and for you to answer these questions silently to yourself. And your answer to these questions and statements will enable you to determine whether or not you are indeed doing your soul's purpose. And then finally, the 4th section will be a series of little vignettes that are designed to amplify and enhance the first 3 parts of our talk. So, why is it important to know our mission? So we keep on the road to God without wandering off. If we don't know our soul's purpose, then we're kind of meandering through life, and we're kind of like driving down the road, but we're weaving in and out, and we're leaving the road and come back to it. But if we know what our purpose in life is, then we're on the straight and narrow. It's like we're on the interstate, and we're going right down the road, and we're achieving what we are here to do. Of course, Cayce said that if we achieve what we are here to do, we can solve or prevent our having to reincarnate many, many, many times. But the key is to know what we're here to do. Casey made a key point. He said, life is purposeful. Life is purposeful. And so that's our talk, soul's purpose. So we're going to start off with universal soul's purposes. These are things that everybody is here to do, whether they're in the US, Russia, Australia, whether they're a Christian or whatever religion they are, universal purposes that everybody is here to do. There's 7 of these. And I'll mention at the outset, I'm big on lists because lists keep things organized. And if things are organized, this increases comprehension. So you'll note as we go along, I'm big on lists. And again, I encourage you to take notes on these. So universal soul's purposes. Number 1, healing. Healing. Now, when I first started with metaphysical work, and I heard this about healing, I went right out and took a laying on of hands healing course. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with this. But I quickly learned that healing is more than just physical healing. Healing is healing a relationship with every person we come in contact with. And by the way, if you have your sheet, if you've printed out the Discovering Your Soul's Purpose, you'll see on the front side, Universal Soul's Purposes, and goes down the front side, it continues on the back. So healing means whether our thoughts or actions harm or heal another person. Casey said, and of course, A Miracle says too, our thoughts are either harmful or healing all the time. Harmful or healing. And so to live your purpose, then it's important to ask these questions. What if today every thought I have is a thought with the intention to heal instead of harm? That comes right from the Course in Miracles. What if today every thought I have is a thought with the intention to heal instead of harm? In fact, that comes from the Course in Miracles. It also comes from Dr. Lee Jampolsky, who lectures extensively on the Course. He said, what if I see everything I have made in this lifetime, all my material possessions and financial resources, no matter how large or small, as having only 2 simple uses, to heal or to harm? So Lee Jampolsky says, every time you have a thought, if you can do this, ask yourself, is this thought or action healing or harming? Lee Jampolsky also says, what if my only task today, my only purpose, is to recognize completion? Completion within a world where incompletion seems to be everywhere. The Course says, my purpose is really quite simple here, or we are to say this to ourselves. My purpose is really quite simple here. I am here to bless and make no demands. I am here to bless and make no demands. In a final quote from the Course, it says, your purpose is to see the world through your own holiness. Your own holiness. That's the difference between metaphysics and mainline religion. Mainline religion says, well, everybody is bad and grumble, and you're not very good, and et cetera, et cetera. But I like to use the quote, as they say in the South, God don't create no junk. So you are created holy. You are created in the image and likeness of God, and it's arrogant to think otherwise. And that's our difference between metaphysics, Casey, Course in Miracles, other metaphysical programs, and mainline religion. And so we have those 3 statements that are under healing on our Soul's Purpose handout. So that's our first universal soul's purpose, healing. Second, the second universal soul's purpose is to express love. Express love. I'll give you a few quotes from Casey on this. Perfect love casts out fear. That's Casey 36-18. Course in Miracles says, teach only love, for that is what you are. Very famous quote. Another quote from Casey: love is that attribute of the soul that enables us to give, asking nothing in return. That's in Casey Search for God, Book 1, in the love section. And finally, a quote from the Course, and this is a great quote: when you want only love, you will see nothing else. When you want only love, you will see nothing else. And I'm pausing a second here for those that are writing that down. The Course says that perfection is living lovingly. Living lovingly. So the question is, are you living lovingly? Here's a nice little poem. I don't know who wrote it, but I heard it a long time ago, and this is kind of neat. And you don't have to write this down, just get the intent of this. A bell is not a bell till you ring it. A song is not a song till you sing it. Love was not put into your heart to stay. Love is not love until you give it away. So, and by the way, if you want to write these down, I don't want to take time to wait for you to write every single thing down. And as Tyler said, it will be up on the YouTube site in the future, so you can go back and refer to this. Casey said to let God love you through others and let God love others through you. I think that's kind of a neat statement. Let God love you through others and let God love others through you. And another quote from Casey about love. He said, the purpose of each soul in the earth is to make manifest the love of God in daily life. That's one of your universal purposes, to make manifest the love of God in daily life. That's 3094-2. A couple other things that I like on this topic on love, and I don't know whether some of you are old enough, I guess I am, to remember James Windsor, who used to be at ARE way back when. He was a lecturer at ARE, and he gave a talk at the 1987 Congress that I attended. And he gave a couple quotes, and you can jot any of these down that you want. He said, of course, the purpose of life is spiritual growth, and that means that growth is love. And he also said that love looks at things as opportunities that to others would be hardships. Things as opportunities that to others would be hardships. And we've all heard the stories of bad things happen to people, and they say right away, I'm not going to let this affect my life. If somebody has an accident and they're physically disabled, they fight through this and say, it's not going to get me down. We've heard about these wildfires and all, and people say, I'm going to rebuild. I'm going to look at this as an opportunity. James Windsor also said something interesting. He said, accepting love is much more difficult than loving. That's interesting. Accepting love is much more difficult than loving. And then finally, we've all heard the name Elsie Seacrest. She was at ARE for a long time, wrote books on dreams, and just a well-known author. She passed away a number of years ago. But here are 3 quotes from Elsie Seacrest that I like. You'll know what real love is, not when you've received it, but when you've given it. You'll know what real love is, not when you've received it, but when you've given it. She also said, people think the most important thing is to be loved. That isn't nearly as important as to love. And finally, you don't really know what love is until that power flows through every cell of your body out to someone else. So, some interesting thoughts on love from Casey, Course in Miracles, and different people associated with ARE. The third universal soul's purpose, service. Casey was big on service. The great quote from Casey, you probably heard this, but if you haven't, write this down. This is the whole thing. Casey said, "We get to heaven leaning on the arm of someone we have helped." And he actually said, "We grow to heaven leaning on the arm of someone we have helped." Casey was big on service. And we'll get into service a little more when we look at our individual soul's purpose. So I have a whole slew of Casey quotes on this. I'm just going to give you a few. Each soul has its own duty to perform for others. Be a channel of blessing for someone. 3024-1. Being a channel of blessing to others is the purpose. Each soul has come into conscious activity in the material world. In other words, that's why you're here, to be a channel of blessing to others. 3161-1. Here's a good quote from Casey. In service alone, may any soul find advancement or development. 721-1. So remember Casey said each lifetime we either advance or retard? Well, he's saying here, in service alone, may you find advancement or retardement. That's how important service is. So service is number 3 in our list of universal soul's purposes. Number 4, forgiveness. Forgiveness. And it has on your handout sheet there the definition of forgiveness. And it's the means by which we are healed. This comes from A Course in Miracles. It's the means by which we are healed. The dictionary definition of forgiveness says to release, to let go of, to cease to feel resentment against someone. But we want to look at what forgiveness is from the Christ perspective. I'm going to spend just a few minutes here on forgiveness because it's so important. Course in Miracles says forgiveness is the why we're here. That's our function on earth, to learn how to forgive. And so the whole theme of the Course in Miracles is forgiveness. So we want to look at what forgiveness is, not from the dictionary definition or from what forgiveness isn't. We want to look at it from the Christ perspective. But in looking at what forgiveness is from the Christ perspective, first we have to learn what forgiveness is not. And once we know what forgiveness is not, then all that remains is what forgiveness is. So forgiveness is not forgiveness to destroy. Write that phrase down. That's a key phrase in the Course in Miracles. 3-word phrase, forgiveness -to -destroy. Forgiveness to destroy. So what is forgiveness to destroy? Forgiveness to destroy overlooks no sin, no crime, no guilt. It picks out all the evil things it can about someone and overlooks anything loving about someone. It overlooks like the plague. When we hold a grievance against someone, we don't want to hear anything good about them. And we only want to hear all the negative things about this person. We don't want to hear anyone else say anything good about a person we have a grievance against. And if we're willing to forgive this person at all, it's only after we make sure the whole world knows how aggrieved this person has made us feel. This is forgiveness to destroy. Now, there are 4 types of forgiveness to destroy. Not that any of you have practiced these at all, of course, because you're here with Casey, and so you've risen above this. We're talking about all them other people out there. This is how they practice forgiveness to destroy. But I'm going to list these because you may recognize that you have seen this in other people. 4 types of forgiveness to destroy. Number 1, holier than thou. I am so noble that I will forgive little you. Holier than thou. Second type of forgiveness to destroy. It's the flip side of number 1. It says, I'm sinful, you're sinful, the whole world's sinful, so I'm just as deserving of condemnation as you are. Now, while on the surface that may appeal humble, it's really saying that we think we can change and destroy the perfection given in the creation by God. Number 3 type of forgiveness to destroy, martyrdom. I will sacrifice myself to forgive you. Martyrdom demonstrates for all the world to see the guilt of the other person. It's not really love, it's subtle cruelty. And finally, the 4th type of forgiveness to destroy is conditional forgiveness. It says that forgiveness must be earned and bought. And of course, I will set myself up as the judge and jury to determine what these conditions are. And this, of course, merely reinforces the belief in the reality of guilt and separation from each person. So those are the 4 types of forgiveness to destroy: holier than thou, everybody is sinful, martyrdom, and conditional forgiveness. So what we want is the Christ definition of forgiveness. The Christ definition of forgiveness. Write this down. This is key. The Christ definition of forgiveness. It's the means by which we are healed. It's the means by which we are healed. The means by which we are restored to the remembrance that we were created by God, by love, and the remembrance of God's love. Gerald Jampolsky, in his well-known book, Love is Letting Go of Fear, said there are only 2 types of emotions. You can take all the emotions that exist in the world, but they all boil down to one of 2 things: love or fear, and you can't have both at the same time. You can't have both at the same time. So I'll use an example here. Let's pretend we have a 6-year-old grandchild who is visiting our house for the weekend, and our grandson has his own little room off to the side. And in the middle of the night, 2 a.m, he comes running into our bedroom, all crying and upset because he had a bad dream. So what do we do with this little child? Do we go whap, whap, whap? No, you dummy, that's just a bad dream. Go back to bed. It doesn't mean anything. No, we would comfort the child, put our arms around his shoulder, escort him back to bed, tell him there are no boogeymen under the bed, and stay with him until he fell back asleep. We would work to take this fear away from him. Fine, we all agree we would do this. But it's a different story when a grown adult is in your face, shouting at you or making accusations against you. And the key is, can we see that it's the exact same thing as the little child? The grown adult is expressing fear. How do we react to the fear in the grown adult? Do we recognize that it's the same thing as a little child and not let that fear affect us? Or do we buy into it? That's the key. That is the key. Gerald Jampolsky says all fear is one of 3 things: acceptance, am I accepted? Number 2, control, am I in control? Or number 3, a combination of the 2. Now, God didn't create fear, we created fear. So what is fear? It's every negative emotion you can think of. Anger, hatred, all negative emotions. It's a cry for help, like the little child. And it also means, fear also means we're temporarily insane because we're believing in something that God didn't create. So that's insane. And Jesus in the Course of Miracles says, most of us are insane most of the time. And that our job here on earth is to become less insane. So, anytime, and of course, being here in Earth School, we're going to have fear from time to time. We're going to experience all these things. But the key is, can we grow from this? Can we recognize that fear is not from God, that we created it, and therefore we don't buy into it, and therefore we don't become insane? So I spend a little bit of time on forgiveness because I feel it's very important. Does anybody have any comments or questions on anything on the forgiveness or anything that I've said so far? You can just wave your hand or unmute and just say your question. Yeah, Marilyn,
Yeah, for me, forgiveness is to give up the past for a new day.
right?
So I can move forward in the light of God. The fear is black darkness, and it's the lack of light. Fear is the lack of light. So when I replace it with the light of God, I'm no longer in fear. I'm out of the illusion.
That's good. That's good. You sound right out of the Course of Miracles.
Well, I've read it 4 times, cover to cover.
Ah, any other comments? Okay, we'll continue on. Number 5 on our list of universal soul's purposes, becoming more aware of the divine within. More aware of the divine within, both in yourself and in others. And then we have to act on it. And I'm looking at our handout again here. This is number 5. Now we flipped over to the second side of it if you have it printed in front of you. So how do we become more aware of ourselves, both ourselves and others? We do it by prayer and meditation. Prayer is talking to God. Meditation is listening to God. It's interesting. Many people in mainline religion say, gee, I pray all the time. I never get any answer. Well, that's because they're talking all the time. They're not listening. That's why Casey was so big on meditation. It's because we have to listen to God. God always speaks in a quiet voice. So if we're talking, we can't be listening. Prayer is fine. You're supposed to do that, do it a lot, but spend an equal amount of time in meditation. Of course, Casey gave his whole thing on how to receive guidance from meditation. By the way, when Tyler introduced me, he talked about my job, as I call square dances. Have you ever considered, when you're looking for guidance, what the word guidance really means? How is guidance spelled? Guidance. Those letters stand for God, you, and I dance. God, you, and I dance. When we're doing slow dancing, how do we do this? We have to be in sync with each other. Each person moves as the other person moves. But if one person is doing one thing, the other person is doing the other, the dance is awful. So we have to be in sync with each other as we go along. And of course, as some famous person once said, if you're not in sync, you're down the drain. Well, I just threw that in. That's why it's so important to be involved with meditation. A couple quotes on meditation. Well, before I get to the quotes, and this on your handout, the fruits of the Spirit are key, and that's one of the handouts, the fruits of the Spirit, found in Galatians chapter 5. Things like love, joy, peace, patience. I want you to pay a special attention to that fruits of the Spirit handout. Not so much now, but that handout is key because it doesn't just list the 9 fruits of the Spirit from Galatians. It lists another 15 that Casey mentioned, other speakers have mentioned. Then it lists more from the Course in Miracles. There's like 28 fruits of the Spirit on that handout. If you're looking for If you're looking for a spiritual ideal, throw a dart at that sheet, and whatever it hits, that's a good spiritual ideal. It's also good for a mental ideal. That sheet is so important. I feel it should be left out somewhere on your nightstand or on a bureau so that you see it occasionally as you walk by. If you look at that Fruits of the Spirit sheet and say, yeah, this is nice, you stick it in a drawer and don't look at it, it's not going to do anything for you. It's key to refer to that sheet regularly, a couple times a week. I'm not saying have it posted up on the wall. You can do that, of course, but have it laying somewhere on a bureau so when you walk by, you occasionally see it. That Fruits of the Spirit sheet is very important. So now what did Casey say well, Casey said on prayer, let's get back to prayer a second. Casey believed that true prayer was not so much a petition for things as it was an expression of a person's desire to gain an awareness of God's will in our life. That's what prayer is. Boy, that really expands it a lot. And then he said, of course, meditation is clearing aside all random thoughts so we can become more attuned to the divine. A couple quotes from Casey. He said, be often in prayer, often in meditation, seeing yourself gaining the proper nourishment, proper recitation forces for those elements being given to the system for resuscitation. 2097-1. He said the body mental and spiritual needs spiritual food, which is prayer and medication. 4008-1. Bottom line, Casey said if you meditate on the fruits of the Spirit, you literally change the cells of your body. Well, that's a big deal. We'll say that again. If you meditate on the fruits of the Spirit, you literally change the cells of your body. So, prayer and meditation. Becoming more aware of the divine within, that's number 5. Number 6 in our universal soul's purpose, manifest the glory of God to others. We don't want to hide our light under a barrel. We want to let people know of our dependence on God. Now, if you want to be like I'm not suggesting that you be like the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons or go around and knocking on doors. That's fine if you want to do that. It's when they come to my door, I say, come on in. I love to discuss spiritual things with them. I once asked one of the people coming around, how often do you get accepted into people's houses that you knock on the door? And they say, we're lucky to get 20%. So that's interesting. Anyway, so I love to discuss things with them. And but anyway, manifesting the glory of God to others. So how do we do this Casey wise or Course in Miracles wise? Well, if somebody says, well, what did you do the other day? Well, I went to a study group Wednesday afternoon. And they say, oh, okay, and drop it, then it's dropped. But they say, well, what kind of study group? And then you can say, well, we study spiritual things. And then if they ask what things, then you can come on and give a little bit about Casey or Course in Miracles or whatever. I always like to approach people through the back door. I don't like to hit them over the head from the front. I'm not going to win many friends that way. But as they ask, if they're interested, they'll ask, and then you can say what you do and things that you have learned and so on. And if they don't ask, then that's it. That's it. And if they don't ask me if I say I was to a seminar, well, what was the seminar on? Oh, it was about learning why we're here on Earth. That's the key for them now to ask another question. And if they don't, I know they're not interested, and I just drop the whole thing. So manifest the glory of God to others is number 6. And finally, we need to recognize that each soul enters with a mission. And we're here to discover not only our own mission, but other people's as well. That's the phase 2 of soul's growth on spiritual growth. First, you determine your own and work to build it up. But second, you look for the soul's purpose in other people and you help them find that. If you do that, when Casey reviews your life sometime in another lifetime or on a reading, he'll say, in this lifetime, you advanced. That's a key way to advance because you're being of service. Remember we said you advance by service? Well, if you help other people determine their purpose and achieve it, that's service and you're advancing. So those are our 7 universal soul's purposes. Any comments or thoughts or observations on that before we move along? Yeah, Marilyn?
Well, in reading Meredith Wilson's book on prayer and meditation, and she said this on my radio show, that prayer is like a radio dial and we're vibrational. So we move our vibration out of the ego into the higher vibrations to be able to connect in meditation, so that we're connecting in meditation on a higher vibration than our human vibration. And that's why some people, when they say they pray but nothing happens, they haven't moved into the higher vibration to connect. So, and that was my experience. I prayed from church for years, and a disaster happened. And when I moved into my heart, life changed.
Everything that comes out of your mouth is true. It's very impressive. Did,
Well,
you, did you say you have your own radio program?
I had 2 radio shows at one time. They're one's on YouTube, one's on my website.
Oh, very good. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Other comments on anything we said under universal soul's purposes? Okay, well, otherwise, either you're all as smart as Marilyn, or you've read all this stuff and understand it all, and I'm just repeating what you already know.
I'm still learning, a work in progress.
All right, well, now let's move along to our individual soul's purpose. Why are we individually here? What specific thing are we supposed to do? Remember that Casey said we are to be co-creators with God. We are to align our will with the divine will. So, and remember, there was a famous quote from Casey, the purpose of life is to know yourself, to be yourself, and yet one with God. So what's the procedure for doing this? Well, as you all know, Casey said the most important thing you can do in life is to establish a spiritual ideal. Establish a spiritual ideal, because this establishes your pathway through life. Every decision you make, you base it on your spiritual ideal. Will this help me advance my spiritual ideal? So the ideal, it's a standard by which we make our choices. And we all have standards in our life. If you're growing a garden, you have a standard by how you plant whatever you're planting, and the fertilizer and the weeding and all this. If you're cooking a meal, you have the recipe, and that's the standard for how you make the meal you're cooking come out well. Well, that's the purpose of the spiritual ideal. It's to set a standard by which we live our life. And the second thing the spiritual ideal does is it tells us where we're going and how to get there. Where we're going and how to get there. It's a roadmap to how to achieve what we want to achieve. Now, examples of spiritual ideals, well, as I said, pick anything off the Fruits of the Spirit sheet. Love, joy, compassion, oneness. Casey said the ultimate spiritual ideal is Christ consciousness. We are supposed to think the way Christ thought. We are supposed to have the vision of Christ, to see the way Christ saw. Remember back in the 90s, we had the WWJD buttons. What would Jesus do? Exact same thing. We are supposed to think and see the way Christ saw. But there's a second thing. Casey said the most important thing you can do in life is to set your spiritual ideal. But then he said the second most important thing you can do in life, and a lot of people don't know that he said this. Of course, I gave you the answer because it's on your handout. The second most important thing you can do in your life is take your spiritual ideal and live it. You have to live it. Casey said, what good does it do to go to all these conferences and read all these books if you don't learn and live what you're learning? If you don't live what you're learning. So the key is to live it. And that's where, unfortunately, some people fall short. They do all this stuff and then they don't necessarily live it. So that's the first thing we do. Establish our spiritual ideal, then we live it. And then the second thing we do is we take an inventory of our strengths and talents. Ask yourself, what am I good at? Casey said that what you're here to do, you can do better than anyone else. But we just have to find it. So we try and find new and more creative ways to use these strengths and talents that we have. Number 3, we ask the question then, am I using this? Am I using my strengths and talents to help others? This brings us right back to service. Yeah, it all ties in. It all ties in. Service. Am I using my strengths and talents to help others? And then we are supposed to test our application, or our answers through application. We have to test to discover what's appropriate and what isn't. We may think different things are appropriate. We need to test them out to see if we get any positive reinforcement signs. So we look for hints in intuition and feelings and dreams. We have to test what's appropriate and what is not. And the neat thing is life will give us feedback.
Oh, yeah.
Life will give us feedback on what's appropriate and what isn't.
Oh, sure. It sure does.
And part of this feedback is synchronicity.
Mm-hmm.
I love synchronicity. I'll spell it. I want to write this down. SYNCHRONICITY. Synchronicity. It's a law, and it was named by Carl Jung. And it's the idea that our souls attract people, places, and events into our lives that help us to grow and develop. So synchronicity means situations in life which appear to be random and arbitrary, they can be directed by something which is not based on the physical laws of cause and effect. So let's take an example. Let's say you're thinking about moving to Arizona. And so you do all your research on Arizona. You do all the homework. And this is before you ask for guidance and meditation. You're doing all your physical homework. You check out the weather and lodging and work situations and all this. And now looking at this through synchronicity, let's say that you're walking down the street and you walk by a travel agency and here's a big poster advertising a tour to Arizona and the Grand Canyon. And then you go further down the street and they're playing a song by some artist that you know is from Arizona. And then later on in the day, you're looking at the weather report and the Weather Channel is featuring Phoenix that day. Well, these are all synchronicity things. None of them are related to the other, yet they all happen to you in a short period of time. That's the idea of synchronicity. Circumstances which appear to have an unexplainable degree of coincidence. That's the definition of synchronicity. Circumstances which appear to have an unexplainable degree of coincidence. Another definition of synchronicity. I'll read it first, and then I'll come back and read it in sections because I think this is important to write down too. Synchronicity is the simultaneous occurrence of events which appear significantly related, but have no recognizable causal connection. So synchronicity, the simultaneous occurrence of events. Watching the note takers so I know how fast to go here. The simultaneous occurrence of events which appear significantly related, comma, but have no recognizable causal, C-A-U-S-A-L, causal connection. Any comments on synchronicity? I feel synchronicity is very important. Okay. Number 5 in our list of how to determine your individual soul's purpose. Number 5, ask yourself the question, what gets me inspired? What gets me inspired? And the answer to that often will point you to your soul's purpose. Let me come back a second here. I've omitted this. Under number 4, testing, under application. The surest sign that something is not right for your soul's purpose is not so much that obstacles present themselves, it's the lack of any positive reinforcement. You wonder, is this my soul's purpose? And you just get nothing. You just get a blank. You don't get obstacles. You just get nothing. That's a sign that maybe this isn't your soul's purpose. So as you said, you look for signs and dreams and intuition and in feeling. Now, our mission is more than a vocational choice. For our job, a hobby, there may be some component of a life's mission in there, but usually Casey described a particular soul's mission as meeting a particular challenge in consciousness. A challenge in consciousness, coming to express a particular quality of the spirit in aspects of people's lives. I'm going to give you here a list, and I don't want you to write this down. I'm going to give you examples of soul's purposes. So that this, you can see that this isn't really necessarily based on a vocation. It goes deeper than that. So I'm just going to run down a whole list of these things so you kind of see how to label your soul's purpose. These are soul's purposes that other people have listed for themselves when they did an all-day soul's purpose workshop. Being a spiritual leader using the arts. Having a sensitivity for the have-nots of life. glorifying God through nature, being an innovator, getting new things started, being a finisher, seeing things through to completion, bringing hope to others, the appreciation of beauty. You see how this is all much bigger than a vocation? Vocation can be a part of it, but it's much bigger than that. To be the discerning and wise analyst of life, to transmit and clarify new ideas, to be a spokesperson for the truth, to be a planter of positive seeds in people's lives, to promote freedom and its responsible use, to educate the soul, both your own and others, to be a creative, cooperative team member, to direct and manage people to bring out their best. So those are some examples of how to phrase your soul's purpose, if you haven't already phrased one. Oh, by the way, I'm curious. I should have asked this question earlier. Raise your hands if I see it on the screen. How many of you already have selected a soul's purpose? You know what your soul's purpose is. Okay. How many are working on it? Yeah, better have every hand up on that if you're involved with Casey. Okay. How to determine if the individual soul's purpose you have selected for yourself is correct. This is key. Write this down. It's a list. 8 things for you to look at. This will help you determine if your soul's purpose is correct. And this is different from our next question when I'm going to be asking you questions. So, number 1, the activity meets with minimal resistance. Whatever you've selected as your purpose, it meets with minimal resistance. I'm going slow on this because I'm watching the note takers. I want to make sure everybody gets this. Number 2, you feel good doing it. You feel good doing it. Number 3, it seems right, quote marks around right. It seems right. It seems natural to be doing this. Marilyn, you're giving me a lot of great feedback because you're nodding yes, everything I say. Number 4, you get better and better at it. Whatever soul's purpose you've selected for yourself, you get better and better at it. That's a sign that you chose the right one. Number 5, doing it gives you joy. Doing it gives you joy. Number 6, you can't wait to do it some more. You can't wait to do it some more. Number 7, people in the know say you do it well. People in the know say you do it well. And finally, number 8, the results bring a smile to other people's faces. The results bring a smile to other people's faces. Did everybody get all of those? I feel those are important to have. Okay. So finally, on our section here on individual soul's purpose, why do so many people seem to ignore this topic of soul's purpose? The majority of people seem to feel soul's purpose, something vaguely about their soul's purpose, but then they find a way to just numb themselves and tune out the question entirely. Why do they do that? Well, I've come up with 3 reasons. You don't have to write these down. Number one, they don't want to hear the answer, because the answer may require them to make changes that they're not sure they want to make. And so that's the first one. They don't want to hear the answer. An example of this, someone may say, well, if I give my life over to God, then God's going to want me to get a bunch of Bibles and go floating down the Amazon, giving these Bibles to the natives. And I don't want to do this, so I'm not going to think about my purpose. Now, this is wacko thinking, because what it says is God doesn't know what he's doing. We know that the best way to get somebody to do something is to ask them to do something that they like to do. And if they like to do it, then they're going to do it. So God would never ask a person to do something to promote spirituality that that person would have no interest in doing. That just would not make any sense. All right, the second thing is, the second reason people tune out this soul's purpose idea is they're afraid the answer may call them to be something bigger than they think they're worthy of being. They think, gee, I'm not much here. I'm just a little nobody. So the answer may cause me to think I'm better than I really am. Well, that's wacko thinking too, because how dare we think we are less than God created us? That's a key statement in the Course in Miracles. I am as God created me. We are as God created us. We are created God's image and likeness in spirit. So how dare we think? That's insane thinking right there. An example of the insane thinking that Jesus says a lot of us do all the time. How dare we think we're less than God created us? And number 3 on why people ignore the topic of soul's purpose, they're just plain lazy. They just lose themselves in television, books, social activities, and they're just plain lazy on doing this whole thing. So that's our section on discovering your individual soul's purpose. Comments or thoughts on this? Yeah, Marilyn? Marilyn, you're muted. Okay, now you're okay.
I've had a lot of thoughts about what you were just explaining. And what I found out was that our culture has taught us to be in fear and to be separated, like you were mentioning, having other distractions like ball games or or other issues that we are distracted. We're purposely being distracted so we don't put our attention on God or say, I don't have time to do it. And I've written a book about how that came to be in 325 AD through the church, and the government purposely has done that to keep us away from being one with God. And so it's a matter of breaking the directions, you might say, or the indoctrinations we have had for several thousand years, actually.
Very good. Yep, absolutely. Other thoughts about our individual purposes? And did everybody get everything, get all the lists and all the things we encourage you to write down? All right, we'll move on to our next section here. And this was another handout. This is Soul's Purpose, Inward Signs that you are on the right track. So I'm going to run down this list of 8 things that are on on this handout. I'm going to form them in a phrase in the means of a question. And then I want you to answer the question to yourself privately, because your answer to these 8 questions and statements will enable you to determine whether or not you are on track for your soul's purpose. So number 1, you have a greater sense of wonder and awe about life. You have an expanding awareness that brings with it a feeling of wonder and awe. Things open up in new and unexpected ways. If this happens to you often, if you have a greater sense of wonder and awe about life, if this happens to you often, it's a sign you are on track for your soul's purpose. Number 2, creative service. As we said, service is a part of every soul's mission in life. We are supposed to be a light to other people and feel close to them without thinking anything about what we're going to get in return for doing this. Remember that Casey said, for the souls you are destined to serve, you can do it better than anybody else. He also said that the number of souls you serve is immaterial. It's the quality of help that's important. So whether you're feeding several hundred people at a Thanksgiving dinner for homeless people, or whether you're helping an infirm person every week go to the grocery store and shop because they can't do it, both are equally as important. It's the attitude with which you do this. That's the key. And as I say on the handout, bottom line here, and this is a question for you. If you see other people blessed by your life, you know you are on track for your soul's purpose. So ask yourself that question. Do you see other people blessed by your life? Number 3, you feel closer to God. If you're living your mission in life, you'll feel a greater sense of wholeness, a sense of being more complete and closer to God. And a key fact here is that an example of this is the frustrations that you have previously had will be removed, and what the frustration is replaced with, you will recognize as something that comes from God. So ask yourself that question. Is that a factor in your life? You feel closer to God and frustrations are being removed. Not that they're all removed. As long as we're here in our school, we're always going to have frustrations, and we're supposed to, and how we react to them, that's part of our education. But are they being reduced?
Respond instead of react.
Number 4, seeing the purpose of life in others. I mentioned this before. If you're living your life, your purpose in life, you'll begin to see other people's purpose in life and help them live that. And you'll also recognize that everything happens for a reason. Number 5, joy. If you're living your mission, it'll give you great joy. It'll be much greater than anything that would get you put in the history books of life. Joy. Key item. Number 6, transcendent energy. Days when you have all sorts of energy and you don't know where it came from, but you got it and you use it. You're using it for your mission in life. This may not happen often, but it will happen now and then. Do you have this? And when you feel this energy, do you jump on it and use it? Number 7, being at the right place at the right time. Everything happens to you just as you need it. Critical resources come to you. The person you need to meet shows up. Financial resources you need show up. You get the self-confidence you need. You get the time that you need to do things. If all these things happen to you, that's a sign that you are on track for your soul's purpose. And finally, number 8, peace. If you are doing your soul's purpose, you will often have feelings of great peace. The Course in Miracles says that's the bottom line. Peace is the bottom line. The Course says, we are here to learn how to forgive, and we are here to learn how to be happy. And if we learn how to forgive, that's going to make us happy. And if we're happy, that's going to give us peace. And Jesus says in the Course in Miracles, I could say that in one page, but you wouldn't buy into it. So I have to take 1,000 pages to tell you, and tell you in hundreds of different ways, and maybe one of them will ring true with you. He didn't say it in exactly those words, but you get the idea. So he said, I'm not going to give, he did the same thing with his disciples. He gave them the parables. If they didn't get one parable, he gave them another parable. All these examples so that hopefully something would ring true and they would eventually get it. And it's the exact same thing with the Course in Miracles. He gives us all sorts of different statements and things to think about in the hope that eventually we'll get it. All right. So some thoughts about all of this. Of course, don't get discouraged if you didn't have a positive answer to all of these statements. All it simply means is we need to tweak our life a little bit. We know if we tweak something at the center of the circle, then it makes a big difference once you get out to the outer rim of the circle. So all you may have to do is just do a little tweaking to give a positive answer to the majority of these statements if you didn't have one. And of course, recognize that all of these don't happen at once. And it doesn't mean that your life is going to be a bed of roses. Remember that Casey, he was arrested. His hospital closed down. His dream hospital was closed down. He was arrested. Discouragement, but he kept on keeping on. That's the key. Keep on keeping on. Also, we all stray from our mission at times, but every day little things happen to nudge us back to our mission. Be alert for the nudges. Where do the nudges come from? They come from your guardian angels. According to the angel experts that I've talked to, we all have at least 2 guardian angels. Some of us may need more, but we all have at least 2. And the guardian angel's job is to keep us on track for our soul's purpose. And so they go along and they say, oh, Mary's doing go. Nope, here Mary goes off to the side. We got to nudge her back over. Now here she goes off here. We're nudge her back in. The angels, our guardian angels, are what give us the nudges. And it's interesting. We are not supposed to pray to our angels the way we would pray to God, Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, etc. But there is a quick 3-word prayer that's very powerful, that's good to pray to our guardian angels. And that 3-word prayer is set it up. Set it up. Set up the conditions for me in which I am going to achieve my soul's purpose. Now that's just a 3-word prayer, but it's very powerful because you're asking your guardian angels to do their job. If you're asking them to do their job, they have to do it. That's why it's such a powerful prayer. They have to do this. Okay, a couple other things on our individual soul's purpose. At different points in your life, your soul's purpose may change. Now, it doesn't change every week or month or every year or so, But after a number of years, you may feel that you've accomplished this purpose that you've identified yourself for. Well, that doesn't mean you can sit back and relax and party. The Holy Spirit may let you take a couple weeks vacation, but then you're supposed to get a new soul's purpose. Check your fruits of the Spirit sheet for what that might be, or for your spiritual ideal, and then how you apply this ideal to your soul's purpose. And as we said at the start, we are not allowed to say, well, I've lived most of my life, so I don't have to think about this anymore. No, you always have to be thinking about your soul's purpose. And of course, as we said at the start of the section on individual purpose, we are not to know our purpose simply intellectually. We have to live it. We have to live it. How we live or not live our soul's purpose is what either advances or retards our soul development. And then on the handout, I put this little quote from Casey that I thought is neat. If we fulfill our purpose to the best of our ability, then others, seeing this, they will take hope also. That's a neat quote. If we fulfill our purpose to the best of our ability, then others, seeing this, will take hope also. Comments or thoughts on this about how we can determine whether we are indeed doing our soul's purpose? Okay, let me give you, I mentioned joy. I have a couple neat little quotes here from Casey, very short. You don't even have to write these down, but Casey was big on joy. He said, do everything in a joyous way, for the Creator's gospel is the glad gospel, the joyous life, the happy life. 397-1. And another quote from Casey, the more joy you experience, the more opportunities you will have to experience a greater and greater vision of beauty and harmony. So you're supposed to experience joy as much as possible. That was reading 1474-1. A couple quotes from A Course in Miracles on the same topic. Your mission is the same as the Holy Spirit's mission. Well, that's a big deal. If our mission is the same as the Holy Spirit's mission, well, we better shape up here. Another quote from A Course in Miracles. What was Christ's mission? He said, my mission was simply to unite the will of the sonship with the will of the Father by being aware of the Father's will myself. Casey was big on the will. That's a whole other talk I got. And most people don't know Casey was big on the will because most speakers on the beach don't talk on the will because it's not a sexy topic. So, but Casey is big on the will. Here's another quote from the Course in Miracles. Your mission is very simple. You are asked to live so as to demonstrate that you are not an ego. Demonstrate that you are not an ego. Another quote from by the way, see, Casey and the Course in Miracles go hand in hand with this. That's why I have both of these as my spiritual path. The Course in Miracles has the Course in Miracles is mind training. It says this right in the book. And it has all the beautiful words and everything. And it says, here's the way you think, do it. Casey implements A Course in Miracles. That's why I love Casey. Casey implements the Course and tells you how to do it. And that's why I think these two paths go 1, 2 right together. Another quote from the Course, certainty of purpose will give you peace of mind. If you're certain of your course, of your purpose, that'll give you peace of mind. That's what the Course says. That's the goal of everything. Here's a nice quote from the Manual for Teachers. Of course, the Course says we are all to be teachers of God. By our actions, we are all to be, we're to be teaching this all the time. Our life is an example. We're to be teaching all of these principles. So here's what Jesus says in the Manual for Teachers. Teachers of God, all of us, teachers of God are not perfect, or they wouldn't be here. Yet it is their mission to become perfect here, so they teach perfection. That's neat. We're not perfect, but we're working at it. And so to work at it, we teach it. Let's see. We still have a little bit of time. Let me again jump in. Anybody have any comments or questions on any of this? I have a couple more things to cover, but I want to, yeah, Marilyn, you're muted. Marilyn, you're muted.
I think Casey spent so much time on the will because the will is how you open up to the soul. You have to willingly do that. And a lot of people keep their souls closed off and don't realize that's actually blocking what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, Casey says that in order to live your soul's purpose, you live it by the choices you make. Well, will enables you to make your correct choices.
Exactly.
It's interesting if you watched in the Harry Potter movies, the end of the third movie, he's standing there in Dumbledore's, the headmaster's office, and Harry Potter asked Dumbledore, well, why did this particular fraternity, we called it a house of fraternity, choose me? It could have put me somewhere else. Why did it choose me? He said, because your choices in life resulted in this particular fraternity choosing you to be in its house. So even the Harry Potter movies are big on the will. But of course, Casey said one part of the will, 1/3 of the will, 1/3 of the soul. Soul is the will. So sometime if you want me to do the talk on the will, I'll be glad to do that. It's just a fascinating thing. Other comments?
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful presentation. I do want to share that typically the meeting will conclude soon.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I assume we went to 6. Is it 5 or my time?
Yeah, typically it's 5:30. Yeah, 5:30 your time. It's about 2:30 here.
Okay.
But
all right, then I
yeah,
just have one little brief thing to cover here. Two things. First of all, one of the things I do is I lead church services around the country, and mainline church services, but also metaphysical unity and that kind of thing. And at the end of the service, there's always a benediction. And I always give everybody a homework assignment. So I'm going to give you your homework assignment. Twice a day, whenever you meet someone, say to them silently, I greet the Spirit of God within you. I greet the Spirit of God within you. And because you're Casey people, I'm going to give you a bonus. I'm going to give you a second homework assignment because I know you can handle this. Every morning this week, for the rest of this week, when you wake up, say this prayer to God. Lord, help me be a savior to someone today. Help me be a savior to someone today. And finally, this very brief quote from the Course in Miracles. Forget not once this journey is begun, the end is certain. Doubt along the way will come and go to come again. Yet is the ending sure. No one can fail to do what God appointed him or her to do. I want to thank you all for having me today. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to do these talks. I want to thank Tyler for graciously having me here and sending out these handouts and all this. And so appreciate it.
Thank you, Ed. I know you can't hear it, but everyone's applauding. There's standing ovations. They're screaming encore. What? Yeah, very beautifully presented.
Well, since my last name is Foote, what people will sometimes do at the dances instead of clap, they just stamp their feet.
Oh, I'm gonna stamp my feet right now.
That's because I put my soul into my work.
Oh,
and then,
see
and then
the soul.
Yeah, then nobody can call me a heel
Oh,
because I make no arch enemies and I toe the line.
That's one of the things that I have really appreciated is the puns that you've used, especially the food ones. I am quite a fan. But yeah, you definitely should change your last name to Soul because you got a lot of that.
Well, that's why I mentioned to Tyler, you don't know, I've been to Seattle 10 times for my work when calling square dances. And of course, you have all the fish markets there. And the fish in Seattle are the best because it's the only place in the country where I've been able to get singing fish. Seattle has singing fish because they're the ones with the musical scales. And they're also educated fish because they come from the best schools. Oh, well, I digress.
Oh, and we got to be friends. Like, we got to do this more often because I really appreciate these types of humor. And yeah, I will, that was beautifully presented. And I certainly resonated with a whole lot of the presentation and the content within it. And it seems like it seemed like a lot of us did as well. Does anybody have any thoughts, feedback, insights, questions for Ed?
I notice a lot of people taking notes. I'm always impressed when people take notes.
Yeah.
Although you didn't really have to here, if you had these sheets printed out, I actually printed these sheets out so that you wouldn't have to do a lot of the work of take as many notes as if you didn't have those sheets.
I have one comment. When you were talking about synchronicity, I had just come across my Course in Miracles book a week or two ago. And then I got this invitation from Tyler. So I was like, there you go. So thank you.
And let's show of hands, how many people are familiar and into A Course in Miracles? That's pretty much everybody. So that's wonderful. Yeah, I would be interested in having it back, and this has been wonderful.
We can do an email and discuss it. And you can always send me an email and just say, send me the joke of the day.
That works too. My uncle does that unsolicited, so that's kind of fun.
I only do it. I don't like to force stuff on people. So I only do it if people beg.
Oh no, what was actually I'll share with you guys what he sent yesterday. What kind of advice does a cow give?
Does a what?
Beef tips.
Okay.
What kind of advice does a cow give? And that's beef tips.
And if you get that advice, it's a moving experience.
Yeah. I Yes.
And if
It
if you don't like
has-
those, if you don't like those comments, it's utter disaster.
I was gonna say it's left me utterless. But yeah, super good.
I wouldn't
Uh,
steer you in
but
the wrong
yeah.
direction.
You know, you're
I would stake
uh
my reputation on it. I mean, you're the one that
you're
started.
I know. This it has been a bovine experience for me for sure.
As long as you weren't cowering in your chair.
No, far from it. Yeah, oh, Ed, you're so good. I'll have to come out to Pittsburgh at some point in time and enjoy your company. If we
You're
can't
welcome
do it
anytime.
at
I have a standard 2 and 4 hour tour I give of Pittsburgh. Anybody that comes to Pittsburgh, any of you that would ever come to Pittsburgh, I give you a tour of the whole city.
Thank you. So, speaking of tours, I did put the YouTube channel that this will be posted on eventually. It's Casey Entity at YouTube, MeTube. And if you guys have any questions or thoughts, please don't hesitate to reach out. But yeah, thank you, everybody. We'll see you back again next week at 1:30 or at 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock, wherever you're at. And we'll start our study groups back together. All right.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Sabina. Nice to see you guys.
Yes, nice
Bye,
to see
everybody.
you all.